And good afternoon. It is time for Play It Forward. And Allison, are you ready?
Hello, everyone. I'm Allison, and you are listening to Play It Forward on WUSB Stony Brook 90.1 and 107.3 FM. Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday. Woohoo!
Today is going to be a great show. Today on Play It Forward, we're exploring the power of music and the creative arts in recovery and mental health, and why creativity can be such a healing force. I'm especially excited because I have a very special guest with us today, Aynisa Leonardo, and co-hosting alongside of me is my good friend and fellow podcaster partner, Silas Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invite. It's an honor and a pleasure.
But for now, I'm going to hand it over to Silas, who will give us a closer look at what Play It Forward is all about.
Okay, good afternoon to all our listeners, both live on the radio and online. My name is Silas, and today the Play It Forward project you're going to be listening to is a nonprofit organization that raises awareness, educates, and advocates in the fight against the opioid crisis, focusing on prevention and recovery through peer-to-peer advocacy. On our show, we feature guests from the field of addiction, individuals in recovery, and more. We discuss illicit drugs, fentanyl, and substance use disorder. And around 2 p.m., we'll share some accessible resources, so make sure to stay tuned. We broadcast from Stony Brook University's radio station live every other Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are now live streaming our previous episodes on Spotify podcasts under Play It Forward and on our YouTube channel at the Play It Forward Project, where you can listen to our previous shows on the go. And be sure to follow us on Instagram at sbu.playitforward. Send us some questions. We'd love to hear from you. And without further ado, here's Allison to introduce our guest.
Thank you so much, Silas. That was great. It is my pleasure to introduce today's guest, Aynisa Leonardo. Aynisa is the VP of Clinical Outreach at Watergap Wellness, and she's been a trailblazer in merging creative arts therapy with addiction, trauma, and mental health treatment for over a decade. She earned her master's degree in creative arts from Hofstra University and her bachelor's in communications from Fordham University. Over her career, she's coordinated military wellness programs, developed reintegration initiatives for families, and built frameworks to support healing in diverse populations. I was honored to appear as a guest on her show, Looking Ahead, back in June, and today I'm thrilled to have her here with us on Play It Forward. So, Aynisa, thank you so much for joining us today.
And thanks for having me.
It's great to be back again behind the mic, right? Could you start by telling our listeners a little bit more about your journey and what you're currently doing?
Yeah, so rewind quite a bit. My first career was photography and film, and I was always into the expressive arts, and I had gone to school really for communications and art and film and loved it, but there was something missing. It just always felt like there was, I don't want to say something empty, but there was just like a missing component of what I was doing. As much as I got into the arts, it just didn't feel as purposeful as what I wanted. So I found art therapy school, and I said, well, I'm going to give that a try. So I went to Hofstra, as you said, and then after that started working inpatient psych. That was my first placement for about 7 years. I learned so much doing that, and specifically about merging the arts with things like trauma and addiction and mental health, and really even the most acute conditions and mild as well, like anxiety, all the way to delusional thinking or bipolar, anything in between. If you merge that with a creative process, I found just such unity and really magic, I want to say, and just people finding their way. And I think that a lot of it has to do with brain chemistry, which we could talk more about. Our brains are wired to think and feel and respond to things, I think, a certain way that we expect from them. And sometimes we can't do that when we're in a heightened stress state. Yeah. So there's a lot of other ways to do it. And in my career, a lot of what I learned the first couple of years was that, let's give people other ways to find what they need.
That's phenomenal. And I'm really so excited for today's show because I am so passionate about music therapy in particular, but I believe, all forms of the arts in a therapeutic approach is vital for this. And I started my organization advocating for music therapy, hence Play It Forward. And so it's something I really care about. And yes, there's a lot of neuroscience behind this.
Yeah, and why it works, right?
Yeah.
And I know, Aynisa, you do a lot of work with veterans. You've done some really groundbreaking work. So it'd be really interesting at some point during the show if you could maybe talk a little bit about how you've used your creative arts and therapy and music to assist specifically the veteran population. I think that would be great for our listeners to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I could do that now, or I could do that later, whatever works. Yeah.
Yeah, this is how you started your career, and it sounds like you almost like fell into it. And
yeah, I mean, I always say it finds you, right? And that's how you know something is for you. Because actually, in that psych hospital that I worked at in Queens, Holliswood Hospital, which sadly is no longer there, but they had a unit dedicated to first responders and active duty military and veterans. And again, I thought I wanted to work with kids, and I didn't. So I figured that out along the way, but it found me. Right, so they started having me work with veterans and fresh out of my, school, early in my career, and it was just such a wonderful fit. And a lot of it had to do with, I found that the arts touched on an existential level for people that they were missing, and giving that to veterans specifically who are either stressed, traumatized, transitioning, overwhelmed, right? And they're used to being compartmentalized and just linear with like, let's get from point A to point B. And now I'm showing them this other dimension of thinking that gave them alternatives, and they didn't feel like there were dead ends anymore. And that was the first population. And it sticks with me now. I started my own nonprofit in 2013 as well, just all dedicated to holistic and creative avenues for veterans and first responders, because I was so inspired by those early first years of my career and really watching the transitions veterans could go through, who again are, I don't want to stigmatize at all, but like a lot of them are very black and white thinkers. Like, I just want to get the job done. I want to get from point A to point B. I'm not feeling well. I'm depressed or anxious, for example. I want to feel better. They're not necessarily thinking outside the box most of the time. And then you get them moving and creating and painting and these things that they never would have thought of, and even doing yoga and stretching. And it gives like a mind-body connection. It gives another way of thinking. It gives another way of processing things they may have never been able to process before. And it really helped so many of them get through to this other side that they needed to get to. And they really didn't see a path to get there. And a lot of it was just like encouraging people to do things they wouldn't have done and they weren't really comfortable doing at first. And then they would jump into it and be like, painting one canvas a day, right? Yesterday, they're like, painting? What do you mean? I don't want to paint. And then all of a sudden, they're generating all this amazing work and really just working through what they needed to.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes. And also, I think one of the things that, and you could probably speak better to that, is that the whole concept, of music and connecting with, with the rhythms and the melodies kind of I could see it how it would help veterans get away from that regimented way of being in the military, being dictated to what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, and hopefully give them a sense of regaining their freedom as well.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah, and music's part of it too. I really specialized a lot in like mixed media and art and photography and things like that. And I worked with other therapists and specialists that would incorporate music and drama too. I wasn't really specializing in drama, but I saw the benefits of all of those things. There was actually this wonderful group. They're not around anymore, so I'm not plugging them. I'm just talking about them. They were called Voices of Valor. And it was a songwriting group that came into treatment settings, and they would write songs with patients that were in inpatient settings. Specifically with me, it was veterans that were inpatient. They would come in with the guitarist from Spyro Gyro. It's like an older band, right? He would come in. Julio Fernandez, amazing. Jennifer Lampert would do the lyrics. She's like a semi-famous lyricist. She would sing, and they would sit, and the veteran patients would write the lyrics with them, and then they would produce songs. And it was all about like the darkness and the light and the journey and mental health and addiction and this like heavy rooted stuff that they gave life to. That it wouldn't have had life. A lot of them felt like it was stuff they shouldn't be talking about, definitely not singing about. And now they're singing about it as a group. And I was in tears every time I witnessed a group like that, because it was like, oh my God, they're singing together about PTSD. Like, how is this happening? But they felt so much better after it. It was like, okay, I shared my story. It's so validating. We created a product together, and it's also beautiful, and it sounds really cool. Something that I didn't even want to talk about now is this like piece of artwork. It's really cool to see.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
As a musician myself and a piano teacher and working with many young children for many years, you see the transformation that music, the effect it has on kids particularly, but just people in general. And I think people, they don't give themselves enough credit that they are probably more musically inclined than they realize, right? So like group singing is one thing that I find to be very therapeutic, because I learned when we were doing our advocacy for Play It Forward in the hospital, I would tell the students during the holidays, I would encourage them to all come to sing in the lobby during the holidays. And I explained that when you sing as a group, your heart beats in synchronicity after a while, and that is incredibly communal, right? But just that experience to have that with each other, I think, is so amazing.
Yeah, and beyond that, I mean, I've always worked alongside, like, there's this wonderful social worker I work with. His name's Ralph Paracelli. Have you met him?
No.
So he's a social worker and a CASAC, and he's a trauma therapist. He's all these wonderful things, but he's also a musician.
Okay.
And an artist. He does glass art, and he plays live shows. And that's what makes him such a good social worker. Like, the credentials are there, the training is there, but this guy, we've worked together for many, many years now, I think about 15 years. The fact that he can take out a guitar in a session, and he always sings, what is the song, that Every Little Thing's Gonna Be Okay? It's like Three Little Birds.
Oh, yeah.
He'll sing that in like a rehab with 50 people, and they'll be beating drums, or the patients will jump in and start singing. And you can't recreate that 5 minutes, like the harnessed energy of that, like you said, that group, like healing.
Yeah.
It's tribal. You can't recreate it. It's hard to even explain it.
You feel it.
Yeah.
It's a physiological reaction, I believe. That's really beautiful.
And one of the things that I think is really interesting is that I work with the veteran population, and I know maybe about 3 years ago, I know the VA, Northport VA, which stemmed from the Veterans Administration in DC, they created an actual music therapy group for veterans, and from that, some of the clients that I actually worked with actually formed a music ensemble, and now they go around and play for other veterans, and they do little functions. But the music therapy piece was noted to be very therapeutic, as was just said, in helping the veterans to get past, as Miss Aynisa said, the trauma and all the the dark thoughts that they had.
Yeah.
And then to be able to get past that, find their talent, find their niche, and then use that to inspire and motivate other veterans. And that group is currently performing in Suffolk County,
Really?
a lot of different areas, and they're right out of Middle Island.
What's the name?
The name
I'm sorry.
off the top of my head. I'll think of it before the show.
We'll post it on our Instagram.
But they do live performances, and veterans get up. That we're sitting in the corner and they dance and they sing along. So there's the evidence there that music moves the soul and the spirit.
Well put, Silas. Thank you for that. Yeah, I was telling Silas on the way here, I'm going to give a shout out to my good friend Michael Rosado Bennett. I hope he's listening. He's an award-winning film director, and he directed the movie and produced the movie Alive Inside, that won Best Documentary at Sundance in 2017. It's about Alzheimer's and music, and how music can literally bring people with Alzheimer's or dementia, they can reacquire their identity for a period of time. And Dr. Oliver Sacks is actually featured in the documentary, as you know, the father of music therapy. But it's so fascinating, because really what he portrays is, you watch a person, a very old man who's mute, he's not interacting with anybody, and then they start playing a song from his youth. And that's kind of the key thing, is songs from your youth, which we'll get into. He becomes a different person.
The muscle memory.
Yes, he's talking, he's singing, his head is up, he comes alive. His name is Henry, and it's a viral clip. If you look up Henry, Alive Inside, take a look.
Yeah,
it's really worth seeing.
And they say, like, somatic memory, right?
Yeah.
And what I always compare it to, because people that aren't into the arts, like, they don't necessarily get it, but I think they experience it too. Right? So, like, you smell, for me, it's like if I smell grapefruit or, like, tomatoes, like, there's certain smells that just bring me back to, like, age 5. I don't know why.
Yes.
And I don't just think it, I feel it in my body.
Yeah.
Even there's, like, a cleaner that I'll smell sometimes, and I guess it was used when I was growing up. I have no idea. But, like, I'll smell the cleaner, and I'm like, where is it? I always try to figure out what it is and where it is, because I'm like, it gives me a somatic memory through my whole body. It's not in the brain. It's in the body, which is connected to the brain, right? So I think that like when people, and I've seen it too, where with Alzheimer's and that population, they have the music and it brings them back to an older version of themselves. It's just a somatic response to it. Like
it's visceral reaction. Yeah.
And you see them standing differently and everything because it's in the whole body, Yeah, it's amazing.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And the point that you made just now about the like smelling an aroma or something and taking you back, it automatically and actually in a way transports you back to that moment, and for that instant you remember just how you felt and where you were, and,
like you were there again,
right? And that part of it points to that mind-body connection, and also the fact that the memory, bringing back joyful memories, really is a big part of the therapeutic process to help somebody kind of go back to maybe a better time when things were okay and how that felt, and music sometimes helps to do that, to make that transport back.
100%. I got to get my Sirius XM back because I miss my 70s channel. Every time I would hear a song that was from my childhood, and it would always bring me back to that place, and I just love that.
And what you guys are saying, if I could nerd out for a second, right? Going back to brain chemistry,
I love this part.
I love learning about brain chemistry, especially when it relates to something that's like a soft science, which is what we're talking about. I think it's a much harder science than people realize.
Oh, yeah.
So trauma, stress, any negative experiences in life, they're also stored somatically, right? Like they're also stored through our senses. And if we deprive ourselves from all the good stuff and we're just filled with all these like negative somatic experiences, the brain has like thousands, millions of parallel processes, right? So when somebody has a positive music or art or sensory or aromatherapy experience, it's stacking into like the positive mind body stuff, because chances are they have a lot of negative. Right, and they can deprive themselves and then just have all the negatives stack up, and there's no room for life and breath and all that stuff we need, right? So there are theorists that write about like how healing has to be parallel to where the damage happened, and the damage has to do with relationships, has to do with experiences, it has to do with sensory storage of information. So what better way to give them the positive parallel to that than to give them positive sensory experiences, right?
Yeah.
Through music, through the arts, through lavender. Like when I do a session, I'll do these half-day retreats. I'm bringing in drums, I'm bringing in art materials, I'm bringing in all sorts of aromatherapy oils, right? Awesome. Like I have a singing bowl, I have all, I want the senses to just be rejuvenated and healed thoroughly, because we're working against all the damage that happens to our senses. You can have an argument with somebody even, and that vibration goes through your ears, your eyes, your body, it's sensory. Right, so then if you do a meditation session after that, you're giving it the healing component. So on the larger scale, like I believe we all need the arts, and people say it's a luxury. I'm like, it's not a luxury, it's something we need in order to offset, like life is hard, right? We have experiences that aren't positive. It can't just be all positive. So things like the arts we can do every single day, throughout the day, to give ourselves that healing. It's proven, like there's all these studies on drum circles, for example, where on a cellular level, healing happens after a drum circle.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah. So it shows like there's proof there. And even in art sessions, metabolism, circulation, heart rate, blood pressure, like all of the levels will stabilize after an hour-long art session.
Oh, I believe that, yes.
So it's physical, it's chemical, it's cellular. It's not just like, oh, this is fun, right? There's so much more to it.
Well, this is a perfect time to bring up the kilohertz,
the music frequencies.
Yes, the frequency.
Just prior to coming here, and I'm pretty big on researching and reading about music. We know that there's meditative music and calming music, but I tended to kind of dig a little deeper, and I came up with some interesting information, and it's basically titled Music Frequencies to Help with Stress and Anxiety. And there are certain hertz of music that are specifically researched and shown to be able to address certain things. So for instance, and I won't go through the whole list, like 432 hertz, according to the research information that I have, often called the universal frequency. This tone is believed to have a calming effect, promote a sense of peace and well-being, and is close to a natural human frequencies. And that kind of jets back to what you were just saying about having a certain type of music or listening to it, and it goes into the body and it reforms and rechanges, and it addresses the damage in the DNA. And this is I don't know that it's a new science, but I think it's very fascinating because they're making that, again, mind-body connection, different hertz. And you mentioned the healing bowls with the different the sound bowl. Yep. That's amazing. That's amazing. So,
and I have trouble meditating. I just do. I have trouble like turning it off and just like shutting down and being at peace with my thoughts and the quiet. So things like music and Tibetan bowls have been life-changing for me because they allow me to meditate without forcing it. Even if I'm having a hard day, I go for a walk, I got music going, right? And I have a different playlist for every mood.
Me too.
That's like I'm doing the bilateral and I'm doing the music intake, and that is like a healing meditation. And it really is like I feel myself breathing differently. It looks different for everyone, right? Some people can meditate and all the power to them, but for someone like me, having sound incorporated gets me to meditate. I would never be able to otherwise.
I understand that completely. I have trouble shutting my brain down a little bit too, but
And the other thing that I found interesting is, in the last 6 or 7 months that I've been kind of researching this, things like, and let me know if this, sounds solfeggio music to help release anxiety, worry, and overthinking, and then binaural beats. These are things that I was like, okay, this is deeper than just...
What is a binaural beat?
Binaural, according to the theta waves between 4 and 8 hertz, found in music with binaural beats. Theta waves are linked to deep relaxation, meditative states, and reduced anxiety.
Wow.
Look for terms like 432 hertz music for anxiety or theta wave binaural beats. And there's a bunch of stuff where you can actually type that in on YouTube and make a playlist like that.
Yeah, it can reset. It can help someone to reset.
Absolutely.
Even I've used in group sessions the metronome. Have you guys used a metronome before?
Oh, yes.
Well, as a audio professional, the metronome is some of my software that I use to create in my studio. It has a metronome.
Yeah,
and it
keep the beat.
Yeah.
But someone once said, like in a group session, if it's really chaotic energy and you put on the metronome sound on YouTube really low in the background, it just grounds people instantly. So I experimented with it and I was like, wow, it works, and I feel grounded too. Like within a minute, I'm like, okay, like the rhythm,
It's actually used in EMDR as well.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with the metronome since I'm like 6 years old.
Yeah.
It's so cool how that pulse, that consistent pulse, that's the key thing, consistency.
So I'm going to steal something from my good friend Ralph, who I mentioned to you guys before, and you would love him. He's a retired FDNY, KSAC, social worker, trained in a lot of the same methods as me. We've been working together for many years. When he starts a drum circle, he always says, what does the beat remind you of? What's the first beat that you ever are familiar with? And it's the mother's heartbeat.
Yes.
So anything like sound or rhythm related, like it brings us back to this, again, this like tribal, primitive version of ourselves that we need sometimes, that reset.
Wow. You say our versions of ourselves, but when we think back to when we're kids, you're young children, that's typically more of an innocent time. A lot hasn't happened in your life yet, so I think it's really important that we play music for all of our kids and give them music lessons as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So we're coming up to a mid-wrap here. We're actually going to play, we don't usually do one, but we're going to do one today because Aynisa picked out a great song, and she's going to introduce it for us. But by now, almost everyone knows someone who is affected with mental health issues and substance use. And we must remember that we all have the power to make a difference. And let's equip ourselves with knowledge, resources, and empathy for those crucial discussions with your kids, especially. So, Aynisa, you want to do the honors here?
So Lady Gaga, huge fan. She always speaks up about mental health, and I think her music's amazing. But the song that I picked is Edge of Glory, and I think that something I've learned with working with clients and for myself is like giving up before the miracle, they say. And this song kind of reminds me of that. Like as hard as stuff gets and as dark as it might feel, don't give up before the miracle. We're always on the precipice of something, and we could feed into either fear and anxiety or like being proactive and really motivating ourselves. So
that is perfect. And I love Lady Gaga. I love everything she stands for. So here's Lady Gaga. We'll be right back with Aynisa, Leonardo, and Silas Kelly. I'm Allison. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today. You're listening to Play It Forward on WUSB Stony Brook, 90.1 and 107.3 FM. We're very busy today.
Yeah, it's all right. Everyone wants to be in this room.
Yes.
It's the place to be.
Yeah, right?
It is the place to be, yes. And everybody's back on campus, so it's very busy here today. So we're talking about the power of music and the creative arts in recovery and mental health. I have my good friend Silas Kelly co-hosting with me today, and we are joined with Aynisa Leonardo, who is an amazing person as I get to learn more about you. But you're very passionate about what you do.
She's a creative arts and music therapy extraordinaire.
Yes, she is. But an all-around good person.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you here, and this is like one of my favorite topics of conversation.
I can tell that it is, and that you're passionate about it. And when you meet a fellow like-minded person, right,
Yeah.
especially in this space of like mental health and addiction, and again, all these, the darkness and the struggles, and you think of the old school way, right? And like we have the DSM, if you've ever heard of it, the diagnostic manual, right? It's like the Bible of mental health, right?
Yes.
And everything is... It feels a little doom and gloom when you say mental health and addiction, right? It feels a little bit like the four white walls and the straitjacket and all that imagery that the media has influenced and that we've all kind of fed into. It's like the negative propaganda. And for me, when I think mental health, I think of like healing and retreats and open air and space and the arts and music and how do we reconnect you to who you are. And like I think there needs to be so many more conversations about that because that's going to help people to get help. Because when they're
help
scared
themselves.
and help themselves and make the call and go places that offer that type of opportunity to them, as opposed to being scared to call and go somewhere and be locked up, right? Because that's the stigma that's attached to it. For me, I'm like, let's get you in. Bring your guitar. Like, bring your journal. When was the last time that you ever journaled? Or they're like, oh, I used to do art. I had a sketchbook. I was 5 years ago. Okay, pick up a sketchbook and then come to treatment. Like, there's a different conversation to be had around healing, I think.
Yes, you're very in tune to these folks. They are very lucky to be working with you.
Thank you, yeah.
I think that is beautiful. And we need a lot more people like you just working in the field and creating more awareness about it. I'm really glad that we're talking about it.
And you do it with such a joy. So that's really infectious because you don't just come in and present it as a knowledgeable expert, which you are, but you do it in a way that you exude that joy of giving somebody something that ultimately will help them to be better today than they were yesterday. I think that's the biggest part of, in the helping professions is feeling good about what you do, because what you do and what you give to somebody else is going to help them to get to a better tomorrow. So I think that's key. So
yeah, no,
wow,
thanks for saying that. Yeah,
that was really well said.
Yeah.
Thanks for saying that, Silas.
You never want anyone to make that call, but if they do, I'm like, okay, you did it. You made the call. Let's get you a resource. Let's get you inspired. Let's get you where you need to be, whether it's with a doctor, in a treatment center, with a therapist, whatever it is, in a yoga class. I don't care what it is, right? But you made the call. You asked for help. Like, that's the hardest part.
Yes.
So I feel like I have to be excited on the other end of the phone, even though that sounds weird, because I can't be answering it like doom and gloom, right? Like, they're coming from a bad place.
Right.
It's like, I have to be like, okay, let's do this. Like, what can we figure out together?
Yeah.
I've been doing this almost 20 years, so I feel like I have a lot of resources, and I don't want them to go to waste. Like, what can we utilize to help you feel better?
Yeah, hype that choice and get them excited about doing something better for themselves, when they see your excitement, they go, wait a minute, there must be something to this because they're more excited than me. And I'm the one that's supposed to be getting that.
Wow. You're talking about, like when people are already in that bad place. But what about, let's talk more about being proactive. And I guess where I was getting at is, how sports is really good for kids. Everybody knows that physical activity is great. But not every child is going to be in sports. And so oftentimes the alternative is, it's the arts or the sports typically in what I see in many families. But I really believe that every child should have some sort of music lesson or exposure to music in such a way where it promotes self-soothing and, like learning how to comfort yourself. I tell my students when they learn a song, or rather listening to a song that they really love and it really makes them feel good, I said it's like a song that hugs you, because it really makes you feel not alone, especially if you're listening to lyrics that are something you can identify with.
Yeah. So when I present on the expressive therapies, I talk about what I've found to be, and I should probably just sit and write a book at some point because I really believe in this stuff. 3 components of it that make it beneficial. It's externalization, downregulation, and processing. And I've made this up, so, you can't fact check me because it's from my brain, but, the externalization is getting it out.
So in other words, you got all copyright dibs.
Yeah, copyright dibs. And, you could Google it and be like, she's wrong, but, it's, it's not on Google. So the externalization is getting it out. You're either dancing, you're making a song, you're listening to music, you're creating art, right? Downregulation, exactly what you're talking about, Allison, with the letting your system relax for a minute and focusing on something else and breathing. And then the processing is that higher level thought that I started the show talking about, right? And if you could do a combination, what other things in life give you a combination of those 3 things? If I were to tell you, hey, you've been through so much, I'm going to give you something for the next hour that will let you get it out, relax, and process it, you'd be like, sign me up. And we're looking for the pill always. The pills don't do that.
Yeah, the quick fix.
Yeah, the pills don't give you that, right? It's something different. And I'm not anti-medication, but there is something to be said about all of the services in combination. So you have therapy, yes, you have med management when someone needs meds, but then these higher level processes is, I think, where the magic happens and the sustainability. You could take a pill for a few months if you're really in a bad place, okay, but then what? Right? But if you're maybe going for a walk every day and you're creating art and going to meditate, that's what's going to keep you well, right? It's not necessarily going to be like the therapy session you go to twice a month for the rest of your life, right? You could do that too, but there's a lot that I think we're missing, culturally, we're looking for that instant fix.
I agree with you completely. I think culturally and as a society in our country particularly, we're missing that important piece.
But one thing that's really interesting, I don't want to call it a phenomenon that's been taking hold recently, but more and more now you see there's a lot of encouragement for adults to do coloring books.
Yeah.
To sit down.
Oh, the adult coloring books.
And just sit down and color. And if you kind of think about that, it's taking them back to a more simpler time when they were kids and that was a joy of theirs, and they'd bring it home and their mother would put it up on the refrigerator, and give them that praise. But that whole concept of, doing something creative and you get instant gratification because you see what you just created.
And it's something you do alone, because I think people need to, like I said earlier, everybody needs to know how to self-regulate, self-soothe, be aware of how we're feeling, and then taking action, something as simple as coloring in an adult coloring book, which, by the way, I think became really popular during COVID. And it makes sense, right? Because a lot of people were isolated, I know I got a couple of them, but that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Can I give you such a weird example you just reminded me of?
Sure.
So early in my career, I was working with a Marine veteran. I'm not going to use names or anything, but I did a lot of art therapy. My art therapy is not, people are like, oh, what is it? Like crayons? I'm like, no, I don't think I've ever used crayons as an art therapist, but it's adults, right? So we use Sharpies, we use colored pencils, we use stuff that makes them feel empowered and not, they're doing something juvenile necessarily. Even if it brings them back to that child state in their mind, that's fine. But this man I was working with, a Marine vet, he, with pencil, some colored pencil, some marker in there, created this really graphic image, and a trigger warning, okay, on the show, trigger warning, because this is graphic, of him having a bullet go through his head and blood shooting out the other side, okay? He runs up to me like a child with the refrigerator and gives it to me. He's proud. And he's like, look what I created. And I said, okay, what's going on? What's going on? I've been working with him for weeks. He said, I finally got this thought out of my head, and I need to give it to you, and I never want to see it again.
Wow.
So it was a positive experience for him to get it out. He said, every day I have this image of this happening to me and me self-inflicting and shooting myself. He said, I'm haunted with this image because I felt like it was the only way out. And I'd been working with him for weeks, and he did such amazing work. He was in such a good place. So it didn't align. And I was thinking, what's going on here? But in reality, it did align because it was something he needed for me to go home and put on my fridge, which I didn't do, by the way. But he needed it to be, he was proud to get it out and hand it to me and say, can you take care of this for me? I'm done with it now.
Wow.
Right? And it was this movement away from suicidal thinking for him. And yes, it's graphic, but the veterans, this is like they have access to lethal means, and this is what they think of. Like if I'm going to go, a lot of them, it's the gunshot, right? And they'll talk about it, and I want that. I'm like, okay, I'm glad you were comfortable enough to tell me that you had this thought eating away at you for years, and now you're trying to let go of it. And his way of letting go was creating it, depicting it, and handing it over to teacher, therapist person, his guide, and saying, I'm done with that now. But a story always sticks with me because I'm like, wow, nobody would ever think, what is art therapy? Oh, that's art therapy. Nobody would ever think that. But that's what it is.
That's an amazing example.
Yeah, let it out and get it out.
Yeah. And it's not drawing flowers all the time, right? Like that's, sometimes you draw a nice landscape, something positive, it makes you feel good, fine. But sometimes people need to show the dark side and get that out of their system too.
Yeah. And that reminds me of, with children, a lot of times children in art class and somebody and the teacher will say, okay, everybody draw a picture of what your family life looks like. And sometimes you'll have kids will draw like themselves in a corner or just one figure and they'll say, okay, but because I don't have a daddy, my daddy's not there, or it's only my dad and me, or I lost my, so to be able to articulate that comes from us from way back when we could express ourselves and not feel anything but just the pure truth of what this situation is. Now with this instance that you gave, that was life-changing that he was able to go back and do that and get that out. That's amazing.
Wow.
And then fast forward, he did great. He felt great. We actually still stay in touch. This was this was like 15 or so years ago. It wasn't that moment only that healed him, obviously, but it was a marker for a shift for him, right? And a way for him to express that and do that. How was he doing that verbally? It was like he couldn't get to it verbally. It was easier to do it through imagery and metaphor.
That makes a lot of sense. I do think that finding the words to these complex feelings that a lot of people have, especially when you're young, having an outlet to express yourself without having to use the words, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, and kids do it naturally in play therapy. Sometimes I'm playing a game with my son. He starts talking about something with the board game, and I know it's parallel to something going on with him, right? Because I just know, and I'm like, all right, I'm not going to be a therapist here. Let me just observe and let him do his thing, right?
I'm just going to record this.
Right. I'm going to do a progress note real quick. But they do it. They enact things that they need to enact. That's what, like, when you play house or whatever, you're enacting a family system, right? And we stop doing that at some point in our lives. Why do we stop doing it? There's other ways to do that where you're not playing house, obviously, as an adult, but maybe you are drawing or writing a song or listening to certain music that makes you feel a certain way, right? There's other ways to enact, life and process things.
Because you're kind of can be somebody else for a little while and see what that's like, and I think it's really interesting, that point you just made.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow. We still have some more time. We have a lot more to talk about. What's your favorite song? Let's go there.
Oh, no, don't ask me that. We just played one of my favorite songs. I have so many, and they span across, like, from David Bowie all the way to Lady Gaga and the Red Hot Chili Peppers and everything in between. So, yeah, that's a hard one. Yeah. But it's so mood contingent. Like, music reaches me on such a level that I need. And I don't play musical instruments well. I've tried to play them. But you don't have to be a musician to appreciate music. You don't have to be an artist to appreciate the arts. You don't have to be an artist to pick up a paintbrush. You can just say, I'm going to experiment with this today. We have guitars, ukuleles, drums, singing bowls, the drum pads. We have all that in our house. And it's all really cool. And I like to experiment with sometimes, even though I'm not very good, right? So I think that's another disclaimer about the arts. Like, you don't have to be good at it, quote unquote, to jump in and just have it be beneficial to you.
Just be able to express yourself. It doesn't have to, there's no set standard of, you have to be able to make it look like this, or even with music, make it sound like this, because I do a lot with creating my own music on the computer. I have all these loops, and that's one of my greatest joys and one of my greatest hobbies is putting together a loop of a drum, a guitar, and a sax, and sitting there and listening to seeing what really makes sense to me. And so in the same vein, there's no rhyme or reason to it, but if I like it and it sounds good to me and I got a joy out of it, and I think, that kind of goes with art therapy and, anything that somebody chooses to do that brings them joy, then that's their definition of, what's good.
And creation can be cooking.
Oh, yes.
Gardening. Like I've gardened.
Yeah.
I wasn't a gardener until I bought a house many years ago, and then I got into it. It's a form of art, right? So what you're doing is absolutely a form of art. They say creation is the opposite of destruction, right? And like, again, we're doing the parallel. We're creating, we're developing, we're sharing different parts of ourselves with others and making products, right? That we can show that are visible and metaphorical and all this stuff, right? But if I plant a tree and I watch it grow, I feel great about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Right?
you feel connected to that plant.
Yeah.
And not only that, but gardening is very therapeutic in the fact that it helps you get more grounded as somebody gets down on their hands and knees and gets their hands into the soil. That brings them back to that connection of Mother Earth.
My grandmother would always say, because you reminded me of my grandmother, she would always tell me, when I was very young, digging in the dirt is very therapeutic, you know? And I grew up on a nursery, too, so I was around a lot of dirt and trees.
And don't always use gloves.
Yeah,
You know, if you need
that-
to for safety,
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
If you're going to get splinters, but if it's just straight up dirt,
No, you got to
just
get down
there.
and
Get
dirty.
it,
Yeah.
Get down and dirty.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels different, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I take my shoes off, right? They say let your feet touch the ground.
Yes,
the grass.
absolutely.
We don't do that
Yeah,
enough.
the negative ions.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And at the location where I'm currently working with the veterans, the agency decided to put a whole area where they could go and garden and grow stuff. And now all these veterans are going back there and they're taking their seeds and they're planting. Now they go back and they water and they weed. And now it's coming to harvest time.
So now they're
And they're bringing in
reaping
eggplants
the
and tomatoes, and they're feeling. And now there's competitions going on between a lot of the agencies to who can have.
Wow.
But
That's really great.
Really therapeutic. Very absolutely.
Wow.
So can I shameless plug the program I work at?
100%.
So
that was one thing I wanted to get to.
It's fine, but
Yes.
all of this it's so inspiring, and I do get excited when people call me and they're looking for help or a resource, and I want to put out there my number, right? So if you're out there and you're looking for a psychiatrist, a therapist, a yoga session, whatever it is, if you're looking to go away to treatment, if you or a loved one are struggling, you don't know where to start, you could always call me or text me. My number is 646-599-0577. That is what I do full time. That's what I'm passionate about. I always say I'm like a 911 operator. I'm not, but that's how I see it. I'm like there to take the
You
call.
are accessible.
Yeah, and Water Gap Wellness is where I work, and I found this program a couple years ago, and I have not looked back. Everything about it checked every box what I was looking for. But they have 160 acres. I think it's 160 acres of greenhouse and hiking and gardening and golf and guitar and music and art, and there's a barbershop, ping pong table, volleyball court, pool. Like, it has all of the things you need to heal in addition to therapy and psychiatry.
Wow.
Right?
Where's it located?
It's in the Poconos. watergapwellness.com. Check it out. And it is a shameless plug, because really what we do is we save lives, right? And worst case scenario, you call me and you say, well, that's not for me, but hey, can you help me find a therapist? That's fine. I'm happy to do it. But watergapwellness.com, and you could call me directly if you want to learn more. Again, it's 646-599-0577. The clinical program is amazing. It really, like, in the country, stands up against, the best treatment centers I've ever seen. Water Gap is right up there with it. But what I really love is that campus, that retreat-like holistic setting, and I think that's so missing when we think about mental health and addiction, and that's really what touched me on a personal level when I saw that and felt it and experienced it. And I've brought my own friends and family there for treatment. And it could happen to anyone, right? And hearing people say, yeah, I had a great therapist and I did really well. It was nice to go for hikes too. I'm like, yes, I'm so glad you went for hikes. That's part of it. That's part of healing and recovery.
Yes.
So, is it a long-term facility for?
It can be a month. It could be 3 months. Usually somewhere in that range.
Is it okay if I ask about insurance? I mean,
Yeah, please.
insurance
So
is accepted.
We take commercial insurance.
Okay.
So it's tricky because a lot of people will call with like Medicaid, and I always have that tough conversation. The way I work around that is I have a list of resources I use. So if we can't take your insurance, I'm always ready to pivot and give you another resource. But we take commercial insurance plans.
You truly care about people. I mean, you can't just turn them away.
Right.
But wow, it sounds like a beautiful, beautiful place.
Come visit sometime. Hope to have you come.
You take all the most of the major insurances?
We take about 6 of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like United Healthcare, Blue Cross, Aetna, UMR, NISHIP. I know I'm going to miss one.
Cigna?
But call me, Cigna, sometimes,
Okay.
some of the Cignas. If you're not sure, you could always ask. I'm always happy to look at it.
Okay.
And
All right. That's good to know.
it's a good place to start. I mean, like I said, if someone makes that phone call, they're looking for help, that's a win. They made the call, we go from there.
Wow, sounds like an amazing
You get a
place.
lot of people from the Long Island, New York area that
I'm glad you asked that because I think that we don't have resources like that out here for some reason, especially for mental health. For addiction, there are some. For mental health, you're looking at psych hospitals, right?
Exactly. You're right.
So,
You're right.
like half of our population is coming from New York.
Okay.
And people are always like, why? I'm like, well, we don't really have stuff like that in New York, you know? So New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, yes. But yeah, clients go in, they call me, they're like, so many people here are from New York. And I'm like, yeah, they come. It's only 2.5, 3 hours away, you know?
Yeah, it's not that far.
Yeah.
Right. That's awesome. But
I want more of these. I want to see more centers like this opening up. You know, I'd love to say we have 5 of them right here in New York. You know, I'm a New Yorker. I was born and raised here. Like, I wish we had more of that, and I hope to see that in the future. The opioid epidemic in the 2000s, right, really opened up our eyes to the addiction community, and I think a lot of really great treatment centers opened up after that. And then the pandemic opened up our eyes to mental health and suicidality and depression and anxiety.
Yeah, with
and
the
I think now
isolation.
we have these treatment centers opening, catching up with the needs of mental health, right? So I'm hoping, like people say, what do I hope to see in the next few years? I'm like, yes, more mental health options. Because we're great. Like Water Gap's wonderful. I love working with them. But there should be 10 Water Gaps, right? Like
Right.
it's sometimes I'm always like, it's awesome, but I wish there were more because it's so rare and it shouldn't be.
How long you been there?
Been there for 2.5 years.
Okay.
I worked with them for a year, sending them clients before that, and I was just absolutely in love with it. I never thought I'd work there, and they said, actually, we think you're great. Why don't you work for us? So, yeah, it just happened naturally, you know?
That's a great resource to know because, like you said, a lot of times there's, a need for that, and nothing's local here, like you said.
Yeah.
Psychiatric wards, and that's not always the answer. And I could see how something like Water Gap could help kind of like, bust the stigma too,
Yeah.
to keep people from feeling so ashamed that, I can't really see because now I'm gonna have to go to the psych ward.
Yeah.
But hey, I'm going to the country club.
Yeah, I feel good.
Yes.
You deserve it, you know?
Right.
Yes.
And that's what this show's about, is bringing up that conversation.
Exactly.
and stuff, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it goes very fast. I want to thank both of you so much for being with us today and, sharing all this wonderful information. Boy, you're really smart.
Oh,
you know,
thank you.
you know a lot. You
I just
really
think
know your
fast.
stuff. But it's been a pleasure, and you're doing wonderful work. And thank you so much for that.
This show's awesome, Allison. I love the content that you bring in, so thanks for having me. Really.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you so much and Silas.
Yes, and it was really great to reunite with Miss Aynisa Leonardo.
Yeah.
We worked together years ago. Always been a fan of her work, and I think that you got nothing but green pastures and bright skies ahead of you because you have a heart to help others, and that's really what it's about in the helping profession.
Yes.
So keep doing what you do, and thank you so much for gracing the show with your presence.
Thanks.
Yes,
Means a lot.
You speak so eloquently. But yes, keep doing what you're doing. It's beautiful work. Thank you so much, Aynisa and Silas, for being my co-host today, and
It
Aynisa
was an
being my
honor and a
guest
pleasure.
today.
Yes, thank you.
I sincerely thank everyone who supports our cause and understands how important it is to look out for each other and to empathize with anyone dealing with addiction or mental health struggles. Let's continue to spread awareness about the dangers of illicit fentanyl and promote harm reduction tools like Narcan and fentanyl test strips. Reach out to us via Instagram at sbu.playitforward for more recommendation. And here's Silas for a few resources that helpful support.
Okay, and if you're struggling with mental health or substance use, you're not alone. SAMHSA offers services and resources for substance use disorders. 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-HELP, or text HELP for you for support. SAMHSA also has 24/7 info and services where you can reach them at 1-800-487-4889. For additional help, visit Hope House Ministries online at hhm.org or call 631-928-2377. And we also have LICAD, the Long Island Council on Alcohol and Drug Dependence, which offers support and guidance. You can reach them at 631-979-1700. That's 631-979-1700. And you can find more information at care.org. And remember, your journey to healing and recovery can start with that first call. beyondtheopioidcrisis.com to check out some strategies for hope amidst the opioid and fentanyl crisis.
Thank you so much, Silas. I hope our message reaches somebody. So for now and always, keep playing it forward. Thank you guys so much. This is Allison of the Play It Forward Project. Tune into our next show Friday, October 17th at 1 p.m. Again, thank you to WUSB. Thank you, Wizzy, Aynisa, and Silas.
Thank you.
Silas, you're going to introduce the song you picked?
Yes, we like to close us out with a song that I think is very powerful, inspirational, and quite the appropriate way to end the show. The artist's name is Estelle, and the song is called Conqueror, and it's from the soundtrack from the TV series Emperor. We present to you Estelle and Conqueror. Thank you.
Thank you, Silas. You are listening to WUSB Stony Brook, 90.1 and 107.3 FM. Be well, everyone, and please look out for one another.